Thank you for joining us this afternoon, where we have this illustrious panel of CEOs from the insurance industry and the risk management industry discussing really the future and the state of the insurance industry in the day and the era that we live in. So I'd like to thank all the panel for joining us this afternoon. We are waiting on Pak Jusuf from APPARINDO. He's having some technical difficulties. I guess, you know, can't live without tech, can't live with tech. What can I say? So just to, I guess, set the stage, you know, for the discussion. What we wanted to talk about is really the future of insurance and the reality check on the state of the insurance industry today. It would be very, very difficult to discuss the state of the insurance industry today without discussing how the pandemic of COVID-19 is affecting everyone. But first, I'd like to thank all the panelists again, and thank you all for watching. We will keep to some time at the end for Q&A. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please key it in. And then what will happen is in the last 15 minutes or so of the panel, we will start sieving through the questions. If you have a specific question for one of the panelists, please state so in the box, and I'll make sure we get those questions answered. So really, I'd like to go around the panel one by one to kind of pick your brains about the state of play today. And I know a lot has been discussed about the challenges with regards to the pandemic and the knock-on effect to the insurance industry, and really the highlight that the insurance industry now comes under because of all the risk involved with COVID. But really, you know, to be a bit more positive, let's talk about, you know, how the pandemic is creating opportunities. Is it fast-tracking efficiencies that should happen within the industry? And really, you know, what are your personal thoughts in this area? Maybe we'll start with David, if you want to start talking about the opportunities you see. And David, obviously, you know, will be able to share with us more information with regards to the Middle East region, and also with regards to health insurance and the areas that you specialize in. David, over to you.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks for the audience that has joined. Definitely, I mean, the interesting part is we went to bed one day, we woke up in a whole new world all of a sudden. So, and I guess you know, everybody was in a slightly state of shock for a while, but then again, you know, we're all human beings. What happens is, I think we're going to have to go through phases. Phase one was the shock, and then we had to all retrench and look at how and retrench and first react. That was the first phase of what we were working on. You know, second phase was settle down into the adapted new way of working, you know, making sure that all your systems, processes, people are all set up and ready to go, and you can keep the business flowing to begin with. Nobody was looking at, you know, growing the business at this stage, but just managing and staying afloat and alive. And that's what we did in phase one. I think the initial shock is wearing off now. Now we're starting to think more the tactical phase, more into the strategic phase of starting to look forward in terms of, okay, now what do we do? We are lucky, and we realize that we are in a lucky industry. Health insurance has become, you know, to talk about the positives here. Health insurance now is, although it's nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I need my health insurance, I need life insurance, that we call in my business employee benefit. That's the difference. I've always said the difference between us and general insurers is we sell insurance on the other side because people know they see the asset, they want to insure it, they buy insurance. In our business, we have to sell because nobody sees it as an urgent matter. But what this situation and with the COVID and the pandemic has created, it's created a lot of awareness, which we are now trying to convert into an opportunity. You know, awareness equals, and then the trick now for us and our competitors is how do we convert that demand into growth and into new business, bringing in people to understand the types of risks that they're taking on. And we're realizing that a lot of people are also not relying on their employer insurance anymore. They start to look at their personal requirements and seeing, okay, does my employer cover a lot of that stuff? And what happens?
What we'll do is then speak to Ronak next to see what is on the insurance side, and then to Iris on the broking side, and then to Wilon on the adjusting side, and the same question to all three of you, please. Ronak, if you'd want to start now.
Sure, Farah. Thanks again. Good afternoon to everybody, and again, good evening or good morning to wherever you're dialing in from. Look, I mean, we started the year off, thinking, happy days, and it's going to be good growth and lots of opportunities and things for us to do, and then COVID happened, right? And the first thing for all of us was survival mode, I guess, in terms of whether our systems, whether our people, whether our clients, everyone was okay, and systems being, never has a point in time in our careers or in our history where technology has been so important. And the one thing that we did realize, obviously, with COVID happening is that, people are a lot more resilient than we give them credit for or think that they are. And a lot of them have proven, that if one way cannot be achieved, then there are other ways to achieve it. So that's the one positive that we've taken away from it, that, yes, this bad thing started to happen and it became worse and worse, but people adapted, people changed overnight, people, went into different ways of interacting amongst themselves as well as with their stakeholders externally and internally. And so I kind of echo with where David came from, that there were phases to it. First was survival, but very quickly, with your infrastructure, with your technology, and there were some firms who were able to adapt very quickly. There were some firms who struggled. But again, that resilience and that adaptability, everyone made it happen one way or the other. So just very quickly, for us, it is, and I think for the industry in general, it has come to a point where it is the next phase, where it is about what's next? How can we, adapt in a positive manner, right? So whether it is as an insurer, or you'll hear from Iris on the intermediary perspective, it is about looking forward. So we're quite bullish. We're quite, yes, there are challenges, but I think we can all make opportunities out of these challenges. So my views there.
Yeah. Iris, how are the brokers doing?
Yes, hi everyone, good afternoon. So like Ronak said, make opportunities out of challenges. So perhaps I would like to start with the challenges that we face first, because, insurers are, we will know that they are going into difficulties in the next 6 to 12 months, right? So one of the most obvious challenge is the inability to interact with clients, with prospects, with colleagues on a face-to-face. And then we have to then very quickly pivot and try to make the best out of what we have, and to develop forward-thinking kind of communication and engagement model. We have started training people, training colleagues on how to make the best out of this virtual meeting, to be result-oriented, to achieve their objective. So things like that we latch on board to kind of help us pivot. Obviously, in the core of our broking business, we are taking a lot more time and effort in placement, in managing client expectations, servicing, because of the very hard market that we are in. And and to ensure that we do that, obviously our relationship with clients play a big part, our relationship with market play a big part, and that is something that we need to continue to invest, so that in difficult times we can all rely on each other, and take the journey together. So and what we are facing, the challenges now is that a lot of the underwriting decisions are taken off local underwriter plan and being made in headquarters. And brokers, will know that it is important for us to speak directly to the decision maker. So it is quite painful to have to go through levels for decision making. So these are the challenges we are facing now. But it also spurs us to the opportunity to also showcase what we can do for our clients, our customer, our suite of service. We recently developed a pandemic response guide, which help our clients navigate through the pandemic. So it is really addressing how they should deal with the COVID-19 now, how they can then recover from COVID-19 and position themselves to be ready for future risks. So in doing so and in putting this out, we are actually showcasing to our clients the value proposition that we can bring to them. So these are all opportunities that we, can take as a result of the challenges that we face.
Yeah, so I guess the brokers have an opportunity to really show their worth, as it were, to the clients in this, as an opportunity. And we learn, as an adjuster, has the role changed anyway? Have you had to go in and do some work with regards to vis-a-vis the pandemic already, or how do you imagine the role changing for a loss adjuster?
Farah, I think just picking up on what Iris has said about interaction, I think in our line of work, we are expected to interact with the customers when we have a claim. We need that face-to-face interaction, and now that's missing. It was for a couple of months, and we had to improvise. We had to use new technology. So we are doing a lot of video surveys. We have also initiated a remote loss management plan, which effectively sets the parameters on which we are going to do the site inspection and the protocols in terms of how the claim is going to be handled. So we've been working quite closely with brokers to launch this protocol. There's a lot more, I think, hand-holding, I believe, with the brokers and also with ourselves to the clients to make sure that they understand that these are very challenging times. You've got to build that trust because you don't have that proximity. So a lot of it's done online. You've got to be able to explain to them, give them the assurance that our attention is still on the claim, albeit we can't be at the whole face. So I think that's been a challenge. On the flip side, I think opportunities are abound because a lot of insurers now are looking towards some kind of process-driven claims mechanism, which doesn't require the surveys. So we are developing value-based adjusting type processes that help insurers with lower value claims to actually adjudicate using automation. So that takes away, the pressures of having to go and visit and talking to clients, and it's a bit more virtual in that sense. So these are the opportunities that present itself during this time.
And thank you for that. It's been very interesting to try and understand like the different verticals within the industry and how you guys have had to meet the challenges. And clearly there's been a lot of investment by the industry towards meeting the client demands to ensure that, the clients are well taken care of, and the industry continues to meet the requirement of ensuring that risk is continued to be managed under unprecedented circumstances, obviously. But the industry has had to repivot. You've had to innovate. You've had to look at, new ways of doing things. And do you think that innovation and digitization is something that is now a foregone conclusion vis-a-vis the risk management and insurance industry? Sorry, maybe Ronak, do you want to take that first, and then we can go around and see how
Sure.
really each of your companies and each of your verticals have looked at trying to innovate to make everything more efficient, and the cost involved. I don't think we should mitigate the cost that this has entailed.
Absolutely, Farah. So look, from our end, we've been fortunate in that, these are steps that we've been taking for some time. What COVID certainly has done is that it has expedited, and it has almost kind of forced stakeholders to kind of get their focus back onto digitization and transformation, driving efficiency in every way possible towards productivity, towards your customer value proposition. So for us, when you mentioned, we take our business in two streams. One is what you call the commoditized, the low touch, no touch, cookie cutter type of products or solutions where, ideally an underwriter shouldn't be touching it. And that's where it's almost as if it's price driven or it's system driven. And it's all about making sure that the customer value proposition, the experience that the customer goes through, be it the intermediary or be it the end client, has to be perfect, right? So that's the part where infrastructure, systems, innovation, digitization has had to really play a big part. And for companies that aren't ready there or there yet, they're scrambling as quickly as they can to get it done. Now, of course, there's it's certainly it's not the end of the tunnel. This is just the beginning, and this is really going to be something where, again, it goes back to the opportunities that were discussed by both Loon and Iris and David. Now, when we look at the other stream, because your other question was on the basis of, is this going to impact risk advisory and risk management if you're going to bring innovation into the picture and stuff like that? Now, when you look at things like, parametric insurance or pandemic insurance, or you start bringing in the more complex classes, I mentioned about the two streams that we have. The other stream is really what you call the negotiated or the specialist or the complex classes. Now, even in those classes, you do need that face-to-face, right? But albeit, okay, in this case, people are not able to physically meet, you can still do it through technology. But this is where things like artificial intelligence, big data, all of these things are going to play a huge part, if not already, where it changes how pricing is driven. It changes the analysis of a risk. It changes how an underwriter looks at a particular submission coming in, and it changes the output of that underwriter, right? In fact, we would see probably that things like trends are going to be a lot easier for an underwriter to kind of look going forward, which will then play a much better part in an accurate perception of that risk, right? So in other words, again, the optimist in me says that I think you expect to get a more accurate price on the basis of that risk as a result of technology, particularly in that negotiated or complex class area. And so I still feel that there is an extremely important part for risk advisory, for risk management to play in this process alongside technology. I think that's the key thing for us to say, alongside technology, and in fact, almost ring-fenced by technology, right? So it's gonna just speed up the process and providing the right solutions across. So we're really excited across both those streams. So that's our view on that.
That's interesting. So the more commoditized space, and as well as the more bespoke specialist area. Iris, how do you feel about how does the broker take to this?
Yeah. It is very aligned. I mean, my thoughts, very aligned to what the insurers are thinking, the kind of focus that, and the kind of expectation, because ultimately we are the intermediary. We work very closely with the insurer to deliver solution to our client. So I can almost think alike with what Ronak has very well articulated in that space. So I think the key things is really the clever use of technology and digitalization, how we can better work remote, virtual communication, engagement with people, and how we have to be proactive because of what the insurers are planning, like Ronak said, how do we proactively start managing our client expectation and take them with us through this process so that nobody will be surprised at the end of the day as the industry moves. I think that is the key role of a broker, walking the journey with the client, managing their expectation.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting point, because sometimes when we do talk to brokers, they seem to think that technology will squeeze them out. But really, in a lot of other industries, if you take examples from them, that doesn't happen. It's about adaptation. It's about moving forward together. And there's a role for everyone to play. Absolutely.
Right.
David, what are your thoughts on digitalization, or, are you guys already fully digitized in this space?
Definitely. I mean, again, within our organization, Vumi, we have started a long time ago. We're, for example, we have an application. Just to give you an example, where we've given to our brokers where they can run the quotations on the standard stuff, going back to what Ronak was saying. You have the commodity stuff or the standard stuff, and then you have the customized stuff ultimately. So for our clients, once we, for example, we quickly adapted. We had already had the portal as well as the application on the phone for our clients, where we automatically used to UE in the past, especially in emerging markets where we focused on the Dubai office. Everybody wanted, that the policy wording in paper, stamped and signed, because that's the only way they trusted that, yes, I am insured. Now with the COVID, we had already done the portal where we used to send the broker and the client a link to log on with their own password. They download the application, the policy documents, claim forms, membership, virtual membership card. We didn't have a lot of pickup or usage ever since the COVID.
Okay.
100%, because we don't issue paper policies anymore. And now we're actually in the process of discussing of having two-tier pricing, where if you want paper, you pay a higher premium, so we can encourage people to go the virtual way. We also have, now we've added to our application where you can take a picture of your medical claim form receipt and upload it through the app and send it to the portal, and we can start processing the claim and send it across to your bank account. So I'm giving you the tactical or the practical ways that we had already started thinking and developing these, but the issue was customer and broker behavior. And again, going back to Iris's way, is even brokers have a huge role to play in this, is by helping us change customer behavior. We have to do that. And now the behavior is starting, we're seeing that change in behavior. And then this is we all adapt towards moving that way. And we realize that, the service, as far as the customer is concerned, hasn't been decreased. On the contrary, they find that things are much faster at their fingertips. They have a question without the policy wording, the broker or the client, they can check on that. We have, for example, through our Vumi portal, you can go out and do a search of clinics, hospitals close to you, depending on which part of the world you're in. We have over 2,000 hospitals on our network, because we're in the international health insurance space. So a lot of these tools were available. We didn't see a lot of usage and pickup. But now, because of this, we're seeing a lot of behavioral change.
No, it's quite interesting, because the analogy would be dine-in would be a different price, takeaway would be a different price almost. It's quite interesting. Willow, maybe I could come back to you to talk a little bit about the pricing structure. So David was kind enough to share with us maybe there's different pricing for taking dine-in or takeaway. What's your experience been like on the loss adjusting side?
Well, yeah. So look, we are focused on providing the claim solutions for insurers, and really, depending on which direction the insurers are moving, we need to adapt and provide the service that they actually want. Pricing, I absolutely agree with you. There are different segments of the claims market, and at the very high end, you still need to send that expert out if he can, to go on site and take a look and provide his expertise, come back, write a report. But at the other end of the spectrum, there is where it's very, very price driven, and as Ronak has said, it's pricing, it's the underwriting, it's the process. And I think that the claims handling needs to also fall within those parameters. That means you got to do it really cheap, like $1 a claim or something. So to do that, you really need to have really robust processes that can deal with, perhaps to take care of claims leakage, to take care of fraud, but yet at the same time, giving a very, very quick turnaround using automation to be able to come to a decision and provide that automatic adjudication of those claims. So we are very much also looking at solutions, not just high-end. We're looking at the volume segment as well and trying to find a solution for insurers.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And, just to move one step closer with regards to digitalization and all the changes that we're experiencing, there's been a question about whether the panel feels that actually the younger members of your teams would now just presumably prefer to work from home, and this kind of segues. This kind of segues to the next question, which I have at the top of my head with regards to regulation. So maybe we'll go through the panel to talk about whether you feel that there will be a change in the way that businesses are run. Not so much the business itself, which is what we've been talking about, but really how businesses are run. Do you think that there will be a higher number or percentage of people working from home in each of your organizations? And whether that will be something that is seen as the new normal?
Farah, I'll just give a few points. I mean, look, from our end, we've always had a flex culture at QB, so it's not been radically different. But again, I guess pre-COVID, everyone, would just come into work, basically, right? And so you have the physical infrastructure, you have the social interaction, you have the water cooler talk, all of that stuff that's there. But you're absolutely spot on. Look, from our end, we've got staff coming in from that are of the ages all the way from 20 right up to 70, right? So you've got every generation that's represented. And you've got millennials and you've got Gen Z, as mentioned. And the reality is that everyone's got a different idea, different perception of how they intend to get their work done. Now, I just want to add on there, you've also got managers that are coming in from all walks of life, right? So you've got line managers, department heads that are old school. You've got some that are forward thinking, some that are liberal. So when you kind of put all of this together into a pot, how do you run your business effectively? And the idea from our end as managers, right, as CEOs, the idea is that you want to get maximum output. You want to get maximum productivity, but at the same time, ensuring that the health and safety of your staff is not compromised, especially with this COVID going on. So for us, it's been very clear that the objectives are set, that there are these KPIs that need to be met. And even that is subjective because we've found, obviously, that when you're working from home, number one, your work-life balance theoretically should be better. However, you tend to find that, and just like what Iris mentioned during the Pulse survey, which we also did, actually the staff are working way more than they did during work, whilst physically in the office. Because you're doing something from 8 to 5, and then you stop doing something, but then you get back to your emails from 6 o'clock all the way till 10 o'clock at night. So and the sooner and the quicker that you respond, the other party is going to respond equally quickly, right? So it's a chain, it's a vicious chain. So just kind of very quickly ending my answer here. We're taking a bit of a health check with every single staff in terms of what's ideal for them. At the same time, we're giving the discretion to every manager depending on the functions that they are, right? So how a finance manager versus a distribution versus underwriting versus claims versus IT versus so on and so forth would have a different idea of how they want to manage their staff and who their stakeholders are, both internally and externally. So there is that flex element there. But for us as managers, as long as the objectives are met, and I'll be the first to admit, we will push harder and harder and harder. If you can do it, I'm going to push you harder, but at the same time, without crossing that line where you break. So it's about really pushing yourselves as individuals as well, and we would do it together as well. So it's been a very interesting journey the past 6 months. And the next 6 to 9 months and forward, this is the new norm, Farah. This is the new norm. So It's going to be work from home. It's going to be a mixture. It could be a 50-50 split. It could be a 60-40 split. We don't know. That's something that we will assess fairly quickly.
But also I have to say that, it's challenging in the sense that you assume everyone starts from a base. So everyone's got internet, everyone's got they can bring home the lappy and all the rest of it. So, I've had a friend who works in a large MNC servicing oil and gas, and he discovered that some of his downliners didn't even have internet at home. So I think we're very quick to assume that our context is real for everyone. But I think this is kind of like an opportunity for everyone to level out with regards to digitalization and internet and access. And it's going to be interesting. But I wanted to kind of shift also now the conversation to something else, because we've been talking about opportunities, we've been talking about innovation, we've been talking about culture, we've been talking about changes. Do you think, the regulations are in place to allow the insurance industry to change the way it's meant to change? Do you really think that as such a heavily regulated industry, the regulators are going to work with industry to develop new norms that will facilitate innovation? And maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I think we were probably one of the first during the lockdown to be initially granted the ability to deal with claims, because we were at the early stage considered an essential service. So we were able to deal with claims, particularly where somebody's had a major incident. You need to deal with it immediately. So I think that the people that make these rules have been relatively considerate in facilitating that to happen. So I think that they are pretty receptive to these changes.
Ronak, maybe we'll go to you now and share a bit of your experience here.
Sure. Look, I think every regulator's got a different approach to it, and I think they'll be the first to put up their hands that they've been in the process of learning through this whole all these things, all the events that have happened as well. So these are things that none of us, as experienced as some of us may be, have ever experienced. Right? I mean, and that includes the regulators as well. So, but however, certain regulators talk to each other. Country by country, regulators talk to each other, right? So some of them may be sophisticated, some of them are strategizing on the basis of what suits their country versus the region. So let me just very quickly give you on a Singapore perspective, and I know that's different from all the other countries. I mean, the regulator here has been proactive in terms of, digitization, and really, whether it's the insurance ecosystem or any other industry for that matter, Singapore as an economy survives on this, and it's almost as if this needs to be something that drives economies, the economy here going forward much more than it used to, right? So they've been pumping in a lot of money to make sure that there are grants and there is that ability for companies to take advantage of this occasion to digitize their business or to improve their infrastructure. Now, but having said that, the policies, the regulation, the ability to govern how a company trades, that still remains unchanged. Yes, and so what I mentioned at the very beginning, the fundamentals have still been there, the policies still remain, but they have been quick and nimble enough to adapt as quickly as possible, right? So, and the issue of COVID has been so fluid. Things have been changing literally on a daily basis. Now, some of us within the industry are in touch with the regulators almost on a weekly basis, and they're learning from us as much as we are learning from them. So my short answer is that, at least on a Singapore standpoint, and I know, again, it's not the same in every country, we've been fairly fortunate that we have the support of the regulator in driving this ecosystem a lot more, right? Digitizing the business, ensuring that insurance has a part to play, and that clients are not left high and dry. I think that's their main aim, that ensures the customer, the person on the street, whether it's a corporate or an individual, is not left without cover. I think that's the key thing here, if we just look at insurance itself.
Yeah, no, and I think there's a lot to be said about regulatory authorities speaking to each other. I know for a fact that Labuan FSA, our regulator, first had to deal with COVID in January of this year, because obviously we do a lot of business in China, and China was first affected, and so there was a lot of requests from industry requesting for us for some relaxation. But I think as the regulators started issuing relaxation modes and special dispensation, the thinking and the mentality at that point amongst regulators, and not just Labuan FSA, I mean, all regulators, was that it was going to be a temporary relief. So a lot of what was issued was temporary relief orders and things like that. But I think 6 months into this crisis, we've now, all of us have now started to realize that this is going to be a permanent or semi-permanent situation, and certain things need to be fundamentally changed. And I think all the regulators are speaking to each other on a multilateral platform to ensure that regulatory arbitrage is not abused by industry, but yet at the same time, industry is given that flexibility to adapt. And this is where the partnership between regulatory environments, regulatory authorities and industry is so important. I think we've got 5 minutes left, and really what I wanted to do is speak to Pak Jusuf a little bit, because we've had him come in and out a little bit, and we're really, really sorry about that. Bapa, minta maaf. You know, it's been tough. And it's the last question, the last 5 minutes to all of you, one by one, please, if you don't mind, a little bit of a round robin. The way MS Teams work in here anyway, a bit of a round robin to check in. We've had a challenging 6 months. What is your landscape prediction about where we will be in July next year? And how do you think the specific vertical you're in, how do you think, what do you future forecast for your industry, your vertical in the next year? But Jusuf, maybe we start with you first.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm so sorry about the technical problem. We're trying to adjust with this new type of communication, so we tried our best, and unfortunately I came in very, very late. But to cut it short, to answer your question, I believe that you know, going forward with this pandemic going on, when we don't know when, you know, at the end of the tunnel, is there a light or not? We don't know yet. But I think in the next 6 months or year in the future, especially for us in Indonesia, for APARINDO members, the best thing that we could do is actually to maintain clients as much as possible, try to adapt with new types of communication processing, and also communicate and liaise strongly, intensely with the regulators, because regulators will then also need to adapt themselves, issuing new policies to you know, secure all of us from the uncertainty that we're all facing. So these are the issues that probably will be the hot issues going 6 months, 1 year ahead. But I think, again, the most important thing is for each company within APARINDO to, as much as possible, try to maintain their existing businesses and try to adopt new technologies or new ways on communicating and securing relationship with the clients. We are not so ambitious to expand, because again, expansion means the economy needs to rise first. Then, you know, we don't know whether it's going to rebound in the next 12 months. So rather than investing into other new areas that you don't know where it's going to end, it's better to, you know, save what you have at the moment, and at least to save the workforce within the industry. We don't want to see people let go, because the situation is very dire at the moment. And I think that's how APARINDO is assisting the government in trying to, you know, better the economy going forward. I think that's my answer to you at the moment.
Thank you, Baba. And Loon, maybe to you next. Where do you see loss adjusting in the next year?
Look, when I started this year, we had very ambitious plans to grow the economy, to grow the footprint of Charles Taylor across Asia, and we're still very optimistic, I think, in the longer term. But we are now exercising perhaps a little bit more time to look at some of these projects and spending a little bit more effort to make sure that the money is spent in the right place with the right projects. So I think cautious optimism is the key.
Yes, optimism is very important. Ronak, maybe to you.
Yeah, sure. Look, Farah, I'm an ever optimist. I think what I've tried to do over my career is to become a little bit more of a realistic optimist. And look, I am pretty bullish about things going forward. It certainly changed the way that we trade. But at the end of the day, this is a people business. As much as we bring digitization into the way we do business, it doesn't take away the fact that relationships and face-to-face capabilities will drive how things happen. But it will become a lot more efficient, and the way that we do it will change. Now, economies will open up. They're already opening up. They will open up again. This is Asia. At the end of the day, let's not take away the fact that this is the growth engine of the world. It hasn't changed. The sheer population, the ability, the speed at which the middle class is growing, these are going to open up opportunities, right? So whether we talk about the new economies, whether we talk about supply chains changing, whether we talk about countries evolving in terms of, look, Singapore's doubling down on globalization. Now, some people agree with that, some people don't. Let's see how that kind of pans out. But we certainly are reliant on a lot of global trade to help us out. So my short answer is that insurance as a whole, whether it's going to be, it is going to be driven by the right customer value proposition. It's going to be a tripartite relationship between the intermediaries, between the insured, between the insurer, the capital provider, and certainly your claims advocacy, right, with what Loon's talking about, is going to really ring fence everything. At the end of the day, that's what we're there about, right? If something goes wrong, that's why the person is getting into a contract, so that it gets paid when something goes wrong. So it's just about making sure that that customer experience is as efficient a manner as possible. A lot of us are very guilty of looking inside out rather than outside in. And that's something that we all need to change. We need to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. And a lot of us, I'll be the first to admit, don't do that, right? So again, short answer is very bullish, very optimistic, and I'm pretty confident that with the right regulators, with the industry evolving as we all stand, I think we're all well positioned. We are going to go through a bump, absolutely. The next 6 to 9 months will be a bump, but it's all about shoring up your base, making sure that you're hunkering down, you have your infrastructure ready, your people are ready to be able to take care of this, and then going out there and driving it hard, right? So, pretty excited actually.
Thank you. And as a customer, I'm happy to hear that. David, over to you. What do you think the landscape in MENA is going to look like, and in your vertical?
Yes, again, I mean, it's, just to add to what Ronak said, I agree with him. And it is, unfortunately, our industry is very much a legacy environment, and we are a bit resistant to change. We are conservative by nature as insurers because we manage risk. But again, I think we need to start looking outside the box. And I think there's going to be more and more flexibility creeping in, and the technology is going to help us because, in my industry, we're starting to already to look at individual underwriting, not just book and block underwriting anymore, because people want solutions. The trend going forward, with this, the digitization is a trend, but I think this thing is, the COVID has accelerated that. We are coming up, and the new generation, ultimately, they're all, they want everything at their fingertips. They don't even want to talk to you on the phone. They don't, I have 2 daughters, and, I communicate with messages with them most of the time. They don't pick up the phone. It's always WhatsApp or texting or, what have you. And that's the trend. We need to adapt, and we need to incorporate flexibility into what we do. That is what people require right now. because there's a lot of what's happening out there in the market. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we need to be certain. We have to be certain in terms of the contractual wording, like Ronak said. I agree with him. They bought a contract. You need to make sure that your systems, your processes, your people are trained well, and you have, you are consistent ultimately, because that is what people rely on us for. Consistency. If you start knee-jerk reactions and being inconsistent, yes, we cover, no, we won't, yes, maybe, we don't know, then we're going to lose credibility as an industry.
Thank you. Thank you, David. And I'd like to end with the iris among the thorns, not the rose. So please, Iris, share with us what your thoughts are for the next year, your crystal ball prediction, as it were.
Well, I wish I have a crystal ball, but I don't. And but I want to kind of look at it from a different perspective, like stepping into the customer's shoes. I'm worried for them because I think the market will be harder in 1 year's time compared to now because of COVID-19, because of the notifications that the whole world is seeing and how the markets are reacting to that. So I'm worried for my clients from a coverage perspective, from a cost perspective, right? So that's what I, see down the road post-COVID. But on the positive, I'm expecting more new products to be out in the market. I'm expecting that client would have more options in terms of products where the markets will come together, perhaps even with the intervention of the regulators that you mentioned earlier, to develop more products choice for the client to address the risk that they see. So these are of course I expect more investment in technology, in digitalization. I'd expect the market to be able to work more virtually rather than office environment. So these are the thing that I would expect 12 months from now in the industry.
Thank you very much. And I'd really like to thank everyone for joining us on this panel. And thank you, my panelists. It's been such a pleasure. Just for everyone's information, we all have never, well, I have not met any of them, and it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you guys, albeit virtually. Thank you very much, everyone, and I wish you a fantastic panel ahead. Thank you.